Thank you for listening to Comics for Fun and Profit. This is episode 426 for comics releasing. I didn't check that. Let me take a quick gander over here at what we're coming out. December 20th. That's what we're going to be talking about later during our sneak peek. No Kyle tonight. He is wrapping Christmas presents, which, at this time of year, kind of something you got to do. But Eric from Cowabunga Comics was so gracious that he hopped on and is going to ably take Kyle's spot. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
First up, I wanted to talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Cowabunga, and the cool thing for us was we get to kind of play along like we have influence in the industry, a small bit of influence. And the Comics for Fun and Profit Spec Pick of the Month each month.
That's right.
Is this month has come into me from Black Mask, and because we've deigned that the Spec Pick of the Month, you and James and the good folks at Cowabunga have said that's going to be deeply discounted as a featured pick of the month for anybody who adds a pull list through you.
Yep.
And in addition to all the other great goodies, and you can get into that in a second, but one of the things that stuck out to me is, you see bundles at some online retailers. There's some bundles, with DC bundles and kids bundles and things, Vertigo, or sometimes a Valiant bundle or something, but they never really reach out to the speculator market. And you have. So you've put together a 5 number ones from the back half as a spec bundle. You can get all 5 number ones, also deeply discounted. And all you have to do is be a pull list customer with Cowabunga, and they can hook you up. Do you mind telling them a little bit about how to do so?
Sure, yeah. So anyone who's interested in opening a pull list with us, we're pretty much the same as any online discount folks like DCBS or, My Comic Shop, Midtown Comics, any of those. We do the same things. You tell us what you want, and we order it for you and ship it out to you weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever you want. The best way to get a hold of us, you can either go onto our Facebook account, which is facebook.com/Incredicow, or you can shoot us an email at orders@cowabungacomics.com. And basically what's going to happen is if you want something that we've got, if you want to look at any of these bundles, if you want to see kind of what our pricing is, that kind of stuff, I will be sending you an email that'll have our monthly order form on it, and you'll be able to see what all those prices are. And let me just say, we're competitive. We match, if not beat, in most cases. And some of the features that Drew talked about, we've got the Comics for Fun and Profit Spec Pick, which is going to be one back half book per month that they decide might be a sleeper hit that we're going to do a huge discount on, better than anybody else. And then also what we started this month, and we're going to continue going forward with, is kind of doing a back half spec bundle. So it'll be anywhere from 5 to maybe 7 or 8, depending on how many back half titles come out, that are going to be small press spec options. So number ones, basically. And I would just say keep an eye out, because the ongoing issues after that may also get an extra discount if folks want to kind of stay with the titles, which is obviously the goal. But for December, the back half small press spec bundle is going to be Wilds number 1, coming from Black Mask, Pumpkinhead number 1 from Dynamite, Battle Cats number 1 from Mad Cave, Shiver Bureau number 1 from Scout Comics, and Bloodborne number 1 from Titan Comics. So
it's a good mix.
It is.
It's a really good mix, yeah.
Yeah, and we're pretty excited to do this kind of stuff. It helps get some names out there that are doing great comics that maybe a lot of people don't see, because most shops, ours included, carry kind of the big 3 publishers, DC, Marvel, and Image, because those are the ones that are going to get picked up off the shelf the most. And when you get to the back half and those smaller publishers, you just get less and less on the shelves just due to reader awareness and things like that. So this is kind of a fun way for us to broaden that horizon a little bit more.
Oh, I didn't even think of it that way, but that is great, because so many, you have to, as a retailer, you've got to go where the money is. And so, if you're going to choose, you got to choose some of the big 3 books that are out, and it's tougher to take a chance on something like Wilds. You might bring 1 or 2 in, take a flyer, but you're not going to go deep because who knows who's going to pick that up off the shelf, right?
Right.
So, yeah, getting those subs up really makes it an easier decision for you guys, right?
Yeah, and even some of the folks that are doing these books are relatively new, or they've done, small pockets in the industry where even James and myself haven't been able to read as deep into it as we could, because obviously most people are coming in to buy the mainstream stuff, so we need to make sure we're relatively current on that. We can't get as deep as we'd like to. So some of these are folks that we even haven't heard of, or we've heard of them but haven't been able to dig into their content, which means we're not going to be able to say one way or another if someone's coming and looking for something, whether, yeah, you should buy this or you shouldn't, which makes it hard on us to want to stretch and bring stuff in. And it's not necessarily fair to those creators that are on smaller books, and we acknowledge that. Yeah. But at the same time, we have a business to run first, and that's really the name of the game. So this is a way that we can offer folks a chance to get in at a really good price, a really good view, and see if they like it. And maybe we get out of the 5 that we have this month, maybe 2 or 3 people say, you know what, I'm going to stick with Pumpkinhead because I was into it when I was younger, when they kind of were running the TV movie stuff, or Shiver Bureau, things like that. So it's kind of an opportunity for us to just get stuff in front of people. And by way of that, when it comes in and we have to do the pull list, we may take 30 seconds to a minute, page through it quick, get a few of the main highlights, and just kind of see like, oh crap, this is something we could really do. Or, maybe if there's a pocket, we can do something with it. Otherwise, we'll check the next one. So it's just, I think it's good all around for everyone.
Oh yeah, definitely. Something that I was listening to your Cowcast, the latest episode of your Cowcast, and you were talking about a customer who was very close to my heart because sadly I recognized myself in him as the customer that walks in on Wednesday and asks, where's the Black Mask section? Where's the where's all your super small publishers, and why don't you carry all these comics so that I can peruse them at my leisure and choose which one to pick up? And I used to do that all the time, kind of unaware or oblivious to the pre-order process. And it's good to know that I'm not alone, and there's a lot of dummies out there like me. But we'll learn, right? We'll learn eventually that how valuable pre-orders are.
Even the biggest retailers aren't going to have everything. I was just at Midtown Comics last week, and they don't have everything from the back half, and it's just the nature of the beast right now. When you get a 600-page catalog that has 2,400 items in it, there's no way that any reasonable shop can stock all of that. Maybe an online-only retailer can have a better chance at hitting everything because, again, they're not counting on walk-in purchases. They're just counting on, hey, I have a pre-listed amount of orders. I just fill those orders and ship them out, maybe by an extra % or 2 for damages, things like that. But when you're talking about things like, some of these really small publishers like Aardvark, even Scout Comics, Black Mask, things like that, most shops can't go deep into that because, like you said, it's the cash outlay. And then the other thing, which we've talked about a little bit on the Cowcast, and we can't get into specific numbers because each store is a little different, but on average, your big 3 publishers as a retailer, you're going to get roughly a 50% discount. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending on how much you're ordering. But when you get to those back half publishers, you're getting closer to a 35% discount, which makes it a slimmer margin, which means the money you outlay is a lot higher, which puts the risk a lot higher. Most retail establishments want to shoot for that 50% margin or better because you got to be able to pay staff, you got to pay, for the electricity and all of that kind of stuff, and then your other products that you're buying. So it really, really does get a little bit tight, and it makes it calculated for us. We have to think about either what creators we know that we can easily talk to other subscribers about. So Aftershock has done really good for us because a lot of the creators that they bring in are creators that we know: Garth Ennis, Phil Hester, Marguerite Bennett, folks like that, where we can very easily point current subscribers over to it. But some of the back half stuff that's even deeper in, creators that most people don't know. So it just makes it a lot tougher for us to be able to do stuff.
Yeah, all the more reason to pre-order early, pre-order often, and get those things in. And if you need an LCS, I recommend Cowabunga, and not just because Eric's here. They're good guys. Kyle is now joining us.
Hello.
Got a lot of paper cuts from all the Christmas presents.
I was able to dodge that bullet, thankfully.
Oh, you ducked the merriment of Christmas wrapping for us?
I believe I've simply postponed it. It's been in no way, shape, or form dodged.
There is no getting out of Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas cheer. Fantastic. Well, we got a. This is your good timing, because I needed your opinion on this, because I don't really know. Aaron Churchill writes in and said he was looking through his pre-orders and saw Mr. Miracle #1 as a director's cut, 48 pages for $5.99, and he's curious about the collecting value increase on these director's cuts, because they're prevalent now. There's a lot of them, and they come out more and more. They're very cool. They have a lot of back half stuff, a lot of processed junky stuff in the back, and how script pages and how the art was done and things like that. And he's also considering the Vision director's cut as well, and whether you think there's any long-term spec value on those.
Myself, we haven't seen anything. I remember first seeing quite a bit of things with like Star Wars director's cut when that first series relaunched and everything, and thinking, oh, these are cool. They're going to be under-ordered. They're really super fanny. And it turns out they do have a smaller print run. They're very neat and cool. They got a lot of the pencils and a lot of the behind-the-scenes and anything, but they've never moved the needle as far as secondary market. I haven't seen a single one of them really command anything. Yeah. They're really just fan service for the super fans and the people that want to see the essentially the process.
Yeah.
But as far as collectability, they're not anything yet.
Now, Eric, those big oversized IDW editions that are like $150, $200 on your wall up there.
Yeah.
They usually pick like a somebody really good, and then they highlight some of their pages, and those things have collectability and increase in value. So these director's cuts are like mini versions of that. Why don't they have the same excitement and long-term investment value?
Sure. So yeah, the IDW stuff, even DC does it. Those artists and artifact editions, those are more collectible because the print run is even smaller than that of the director's cut floppies. The price tag is much higher, and then what you're getting out of those books is actual size replications of the original art. And like you said, the names that they choose are significant for a reason. So names like Jack Kirby, Walt Simonson, things like that, where you have art pages that would cost in the tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes even more for cover pages, like the Buscema Silver Surfer #1. There's things like that are just iconic pages that there's obviously only one in the world of and would cost tens of thousands of dollars to have. So they make these tabletop editions that are hardcover, incredibly high resolution scans from the original artwork. They've done it with Michael Turner. Obviously, he's not putting out any more new artwork. Unfortunately, he passed away. So there's these crucial and key artists that are out there right now, are no longer with us, that the artwork is still out there. It's able to be found and scanned. That's why those are going up in value, or at the very least retain their value. With things like Star Wars #1 director's cut, we see those in dollar bins, $2 bins. There was a lot of them printed, and it was really more than anything, it was fan service. It was a book that was created for the fans that wanted to see like what goes into creating a comic book. And that's honestly the way that James and I tend to treat those in the store. So we've got the Vision, we've got Star Wars, there was Vader had one. I want to say that All-Star Batman or one of the Batmans had it. And what we do is, if anyone's ever interested in wanting to become a creator, a writer, we direct them to those. And we say, you know what, if you want to get kind of an inside scoop on how the conversation happens between the writer and the artist, this is where you're going to pick it up, and you're going to see in each one it's a little different. Jason Aaron has gone on to say that, for some of his stuff, like especially Southern Bastards, very little direction as far as the art goes, because Latour they know each other so well that it happens. Whereas Scott Snyder will tend to be a little bit more verbose in the direction that he wants certain art to be, unless he's going against Greg Capullo, in which case he'll just say, okay, or whatever you want. So each person is a little different. So those are more like teaching tools and learning tools, and kind of that, like on a Blu-ray where you see kind of the director's commentary. That's really what that is. Whereas those artist editions are the full-size reprints, or the artifact editions. Those are the full-size reprints of that, in most cases, hard-to-find art. We've got a couple of them on the shelf that are relatively recent, like ElfQuest, Red Sonja, things like that. Even some DC stuff that we have, like there's a Dark Knight one up there. We've got some Jim Lee artwork. Most cases, though, it's really rare artwork and hard to get, and it's highly sought after for any different reasons. Obviously the Vampirella crowd and the Red Sonja crowd are going to be different than the ElfQuest or the Usagi Yojimbo crowd, which is going to be different from the Kirby Simonson Buscema crowd.
I want all those. I want all those. I don't know where I'd put them. They're so beautiful. Those big, oversized things. They're just amazing. And I'll never own the original art. So
right.
I get it. But yeah, I'd love to have them all and put them and just have them out on a coffee table. They could be a coffee table. They're so big.
Yes.
But yeah, so I guess the answer there is, so if you love the vision and you want to see how the process happened between King and Walta, and how it went from pencils to inks and colors, there's a lot of value in that as far as reading and understanding that process. That's cool. If you want to see the Mitch Gerads Mr. Miracle connection, that's also cool, and I think it's well worth the $6 for 48 pages. Don't do it trying to spec on it. I think that's what we're all in agreement that there's no money to be made there. It's just fan. If you're a fan of that property, you learn more about it and enjoy that process.
Yeah, the way I look at it is more along the lines of like what Ed Brubaker does in his single issues, where there's back matter. Brian K. Vaughan does the same thing.
Yep.
There's more meat on the bones in the back half, and it's kind of just it's fan service. It's there for those that really dig into it and want more of the story or something like that, as opposed to a piece of something that will make it more collectible.
Yep. Thanks, Aaron, for the question. That was a good one. We have something from Chris Brooks from South Carolina, and boy, South Carolina sounds nice right now. But he has part of his 12 comics of Christmas, and he's sent his in to be a part of our lists. And his top 12. He's violated 2 rules, right off the bat.
I would just like to point out that these rules were not provided in advance.
Yeah, but they're neither implied nor physical.
They're in my head, and I'll tell you when you violate them. He gave me 13 because there was a tie, and he put them in no particular order.
I'm okay with the no particular order.
Violation, but I'm going to read them anyway. So it's Baby Teeth, Batman / Mr. Miracle. Oh, got to pick. That should be 2. That should be 2 right there. Because they're both by Tom King, he put them together.
You had 46 honorable mentions.
Well, I think that's allowable. I'll allow it. Batman Mr. Miracle, Batman White Knight, Dark Knight's Metal, Eugenic, Crosswind, Flash, Spider-Gwen, Reborn, Skyborn, Redlands, and Revival as a posthumous selection, because I don't think it was. Did it end this year, or was
it ended this year?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm happy that he threw Eugenic on there. I've been a huge fan of James Tynion's trilogy of trilogies with Memenic, Cognetic, and now Eugenic. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Kyle likes James Tynion too.
I do.
Yeah. So the two of you can enjoy that stuff. It's a pretty good list. Heavy on the recent Bat books, but that's cool, and
pretty heavy on Image stuff too, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, we like to hear that. I'm a big fan. He does ask for a favor. Also, him and Chris and his 10-year-old son have started a podcast of their own called Toys, Comics, Movies, Etc. They have 12 episodes on SoundCloud and iTunes, and would love a shout out. So if you want to hear a dad and a son doing a podcast together, which I think is super cool, check out Toys, Comics, Movies, Etc. on SoundCloud or iTunes, and give him a rating and a review as well, because we know how valuable that stuff is.
Absolutely.
So that's good stuff. Today, while I was supposed to be working on a paper, instead I was on Twitter floating around, and Declan Shalvey he kind of did an angry tweet about Ed Brubaker's Killer Be Killed got optioned, and the headlines said something to the effect of Brubaker's Killer Be Killed optioned for this TV show or movie or whatever, and he took umbrage with the fact that it's a Brubaker Phillips collaboration, and not just a Brubaker joint. So Ron Garney, another extraordinary artist, jumped on that and was also talking about the fact that artists get second shift. They don't get the credit that they're due for the creative process, and then yours truly decided to wade into the deep end of the pool and try to stake a claim for writers.
Oh no, you made things worse, didn't you?
I was very you would have been proud of me, Kyle. I was very civil.
Right.
I was very civil and nice, and I just said, well, to me, and I might be in the minority, but if a book is well written, I'll read it for a long time, whether the art is subpar or not. If a book is poorly written, I'll jump off of it, even if it's got beautiful art. So it's an uneven playing field. In addition, I feel that the writer creates the world, creates the characters, creates the plot, the story, and then of course it's a collaboration to get the sequential storytelling through the artist's vision on the page, and that's incredibly important, and when it works, it's wonderful, but it's not equal. I think writers should get more credit for that successful comic, and when it's time to say, let's make that into some other medium, here's $5, they should get the lion's share of that, or at least the majority share of that, because it is their creative vision. And thank you to the artist for making it great, but you didn't come up with the idea. Where am I wrong?
Everywhere. I'm
Okay.
kidding. That was a little too over the top. Kyle, do you want to go first, and then I'll fill in?
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying there, in as much as storytelling and writing and overall is exorbitantly important. And I can see where the bias comes in, where everybody. I'm reading one of the articles right now on the Killer Be Killed, and they mentioned. They mentioned Sean Phillips draws the comic, which is currently being published by Image Comics, and then it goes on to a 2-paragraph set on Brubaker and his prolific authorship and all the different Winter Soldier and everything else he does for it. But man, art style leads so much, even in that case, to that book, and just the way everything's conveyed, that it's, it'd be half the book. Think about Saga. BKV is the big guy, and he gets all the credit for that. But we've seen the notes and the things that he sends to Fiona, and just says, I want an alien that's kind of like this. And she fleshes out, and she creates this entire world based on just a couple little things that she says, that she has so much ownership in every single one of those characters. In my opinion, even more so than BKV. And I remember watching documentaries about Bill Finger and stuff back in the original Batman days, that, he was given a lot of license where, like, the Joker's more his creation, in my mind, just based on the things that he was getting and kind of how he fleshed some of those villains and some of those other things out in the beginning ones that, man, artists do get to slide so much, but they do so much interpretation, they put so much on the page that, you can't just give it all to the writer.
No, I
never
totally
said all.
agree.
I said majority share.
Yeah, and I think that over time things have changed a little bit to where the focus of creative talent is. I think when comics originated, we've all heard about the Marvel method, right? Where there would be a very, very, very loose plot line that would get handed over to the artist. The artist would draw out an entire issue and then hand it back, and then the words were put in, right? So that has changed. DC is trying to bring that back, but by and large, I get where one side of the argument comes in that, Drew, what you're saying, the writer is the guy that's crafting the words that create the environment, that create the settings and the characters. But Kyle nailed it on the head. A lot of times the artists are the ones that are doing the character creation as far as the looks, and especially as far as the backgrounds, the settings, and things like that. You look in a lot of image books especially, and you see character design for those first issues. And the character design is all coming from the artist, right? They're providing 3 or 4 different mind's eye views of the character and saying, this is what I think. And that's what's taken and gone with. Now, there's a list of artists that I have that pretty much regardless of what book they're on, I'm going to get it because I love their art. Nicola Scott is one, George Perez, Ed McGuinness, Gary Brown, Fiona Staples, Pia Guerrera. Those are artists that, regardless of what they're on, at the very minimum, I'm checking it out, and oftentimes I'll stay on the book even if the words are crap because their art is just too good.
Are you still reading Sirens?
Oddly enough, yes.
Oh my god! Okay, well you win. You win that one.
Can I say this? I'm looking at Sirens. But I mean, there's some of these creators. There's just things that they do. So for me, Nicola Scott, just her art, whether it's Wonder Woman, Black Magic, and even before that in her earlier DC work, it's just so clean and crisp and unbelievable that I don't care what the words are. I want to look at it and I want to take it in. Pia Guerrera, obviously, another creator who works with Brian K. Vaughan, someone who he was able to just say, hey, this is what I have in Y the Last Man. This is the idea. And she took it and ran with it. And Y the Last Man covers a lot of territory. It's not like Gotham where it's the same setting over and over again. He traversed, sorry, spoilers. He traversed, York just traveled all around the world, basically, especially the U.S., met all sorts of different people, all sorts of different settings, all sorts of different buildings, and she created all that out of her own mind's eye. Sure, she had somewhere to draw from, but at the same time, without her, I don't know as if the story gets as much traction, and I don't know if the ultimate rights that got sold to either become a TV show or a movie as it bounces back and forth would have happened as easily because she made it a reality. So, and then obviously you go back to the 90s and the Image Revolution, it was all artist driven, right? You had your Jim Lees, you had your Todd McFarlanes. So I think that there's definitely some truth. And obviously Declan Shalvey is an artist and he's done some writing. So he's going to come from that artist side of things and say, hey, we get equal billing. We do, just as much of the work. So I agree with him. I think that the articles maybe could have played up the art a little bit more. But hey, it's the way the industry is right now. And then there's always the forgotten third wheel in this, which is the colorist. So Betty Brightweiser, yes. That woman is amazing. Very much like Jordi Belair, people that can just do unbelievable things. Drew, you and I were talking before we started recording about what Betty was able to do in Velvet, which is probably my favorite Brubaker story right now, and just how much dark atmosphere there was, but she was able to make so much happen with with the colors coming off of the page. So it's a tough world, but ultimately, the script writer in movies, the director in movies, often gets the billing and the wow factor, not so much the guy that's the lead animator or the the lead set designer. Yeah.
Yep. Here's where you're wrong. Where you're wrong is Y the Last Man. It is a story first, and
then we should probably give most of the credit to Shakespeare because isn't it based on Shakespearean?
Sure, and you could add there are 10 artists 15 artists that could have helped tell that story besides Pia Guerra, and it would have been just as successful, if not more successful. I could read a comic that has stick figures in it that helps tell the storytelling. I don't need the fine art. It's about the story. And when if somebody's buying Kill or Be Killed, it's not because of the way Phillips rendered the protagonist or the demon's horns. It's because the story is interesting and the characters are interesting and the plot was cool and they can make money because they can put it in another medium and it's really cool. It doesn't have to be, although Phillips works well with Brubaker, it could have been 20 other artists and it still would have sold.
On the same token, though, you can point to things that Brubaker's written that aren't instant classics or aren't things that you go, oh my god, I have to see it. And some of that's because of the art. It's not so much the story. So right. I think that I think we can all agree that it's more of a 50-50 share than a one over the other.
Yeah, that's where you're wrong again. It's definitely a 50-50 partnership. I can see that I can see there's give and take, and they work well together. But when it comes time to say optioned for movie, who gets the credit for the vision that was purchased? It's not a 50-50 split most of the time. I will give you wiggle room that there are times where it is a definite collaboration, especially in the creator-owned world. There's definitely a collaboration that wouldn't happen. One guy couldn't do it without the other person. I'll give you that. But it's a small percentage. For the most part, it is that writer that gets should get the lion's share of the credit. 60-40, something like that. Yes, I appreciate the artists and all they do, but words are king. And is
this just writers getting their revenge for the ability to resell original art and do sketching and make that extra side money?
Yeah.
That this is how the writers of the world get their comeuppance?
Exactly, because artists do have that advantage. You go to a con and you go to a writer's table and it's an empty table. And it's him at a table without, usually not even like a tablecloth on it. It's really a sad and lonely. There's like a coffee ring sitting there. Sometimes they'll pull out script pages and you'll be like, yeah, I don't really want a Xerox copy of a script page, man. And so they don't have the same angles that an artist. You go to an artist table and it's just beautifully laid out. It's got original art and sketches and all kinds of wonderful things going on and lines usually. So yeah, there's something to that. Artists, you get that. You own the con world, and writers get credit when it comes times to see who's actually responsible for it.
Unless you're Fiona Staples and you only do digital and you have no physical stuff to sell other than prints, then you're just as good as a creator that's doing only writing that has comp copies of trades and single issues to sell.
Doesn't she do numbered? Like
she prints one out and considers it the one or something like that. The one original piece.
I thought she did. There was something she did so that she could have original art. And I can't remember what it was. But yeah, you're right. It's not really original art because it's not a board.
Right.
It's not a blue line. Yeah, so I wonder if it's not really legit, is it?
I just don't pay her for it. She's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so where am I wrong? Where am I missing it?
Well, I think, where Kyle and I stand, and Kyle, I'm going to just say you're standing with me,
yep.
is that, without the visuals, you'd lose half of the story. Granted, like to your point, Drew, any one of 20 different artists could do it, but at the same point, it takes an artist to make it happen. If you just took the words that these writers were saying and put it out there on a blank sheet of paper, I don't think you sell anything.
That's a short story. Yeah, it's not going to be the same.
Here's what you're going to do. The next time you get a story, Drew, you're going to just read the word balloons and not look at the pictures and tell me if it makes any sense. Unless it's Brian Michael Bendis, you won't be able to make sense out of it.
See, I don't reduce me to saying I don't care about art. Of course I do. Of course I love the comic
that's what I
medium.
heard.
I love the comic medium because it blends writing and art. But we're talking about crediting a success, credit where credit is due. The idea is in Brubaker's head.
And that's not always the case. If you listen to, on iFanboy, there was a Talksplode episode with Jason Aaron, and he talked about Southern Bastards and where it came from, and it was Aaron and Latour coming together to say, hey, we could tell this really cool story. It was a joint collaboration, and Latour has written some of those issues, and, had Aaron just do a little bit of, kind of cleanup or rough general. So it's not really fair to say that it's always the writer. It can very often be both.
There are occasions, and I'm speaking majority. I doubt very much that King collaborates with the bevy of artists that come and go on Batman to write the story. I think those arcs are his creations, and they do their take, and they work through his, but they work through his vision. No pun intended.
I mean, Scott Snyder writes some amazing stuff, but if we don't get the visuals from Capullo on Court of Owls, it could be just an awful storyline about some weird old people with masks on.
Agreed.
Scott Snyder's, well, I mean, he's done stuff with a bunch of different artists. Murphy.
It didn't hit like him and his Capullo stuff,
which is really, is he and Jock's collaboration, Murphy and him on Wake.
You have to be all in on Jock to enjoy Witches. You have to see more. You have to see more in line with the art style than you do the storyline for Witches, because that's a huge part of what it is.
Again, artists are great, and when artists and writers are on the same page, especially in their creator-owned work, where they have an agreement where they share the credit. Now, I bet you there's different contracts and collaborations. I bet you all those creator-owned comics at Image aren't 50-50 splits. If those creators want to shoot me a fax copy.
Wait, what?
What's a
fax?
They
want to shoot me a fax, a carrier pigeon. Send me a copy of your contract to show me that it's 50-50. Okay, but I would bet you that while the artist owns a piece of it, I bet you it's not a 50% of it. And I might be wrong, but I would guess that that's the case.
I am not a creator, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah. Next time you talk to some creators that have creator-owned work, we'll have to ask. You'll talk to them before I will.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Now I think after this podcast, there'll be a lot of artists contacting you.
That would be Drew at
Comics Fun Profit on Twitter. Hit me up. Hey, you know what? We got numbers. And these numbers are driven by both the artist and the writer.
Nice save.
Yeah, we have the top 10 at least. We don't have the complete information. But if you want to head over to Comicron.com, you can check out the initial release of top 10s and some cursory numbers, and we can take a look. First and foremost, we're down a little bit over this November compared to last November. We're down 13% in comics sold. So last year was a much better year, at least in November. And year to date, we're down. We're down about 8% in comics, about 12% in trades. So that's unfortunate, but interesting. We got a new leader in the clubhouse as far as the publisher that sold the most comics in November, and it is DC. nearly 40% share of comics compared to Marvel's 34.5%. So they I think that's the first time they've beat them in a while. I know it's been close.
It's like week 4 of Rebirth, or month 4 of Rebirth, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while. They've been close, but this is the first drubbing that I've seen where DC's been the victor for a little bit of time. Image still stays there at 8%. Sometimes they'll get 9. Occasionally they'll break 10, but yeah, they're right in that wheelhouse. IDW at 3.6, Dynamite at 2%, 1.5 for Dark Horse, over 1.5 for Boom, and Titan got a percentage point. So everybody else was below that.
Hey, and don't forget that Rick and Morty at the bottom. 1.2% for Oni.
That's driven by that's driven by Rick and Morty.
And one of many other things, but yeah.
It's not letter 44 anymore. I know that.
That's right.
So our top 10 came out, and anything jump out at you when you look at that top 10, guys?
Looks good to me.
I'm in.
That's an awful lot of DC there.
Yes.
Eight of the top 10 are DC books, with the top 2 being the same book, Doomsday Clock.
Yep.
And this is where a retailer perspective can back me up on. Those are 2 different items because they are 2 different price points and therefore 2 different SKUs.
They are 2 different SKUs. They are 2 different order line items. When we look at orders, they are 2 different sales tactics.
Let me tell you why you're wrong.
I think we found the title of this episode.
So the title of this episode is Why You're Wrong?
That's the title of this episode. Let me tell you why you're wrong. It's Doomsday Clock. Okay? It's Doomsday Clock. There's no difference between there being 2 Doomsday Clocks at the top and 50 of Venom with all the variant covers. No difference to me, just because there's a different SKU.
So to that point, it is true. Every cover has a different SKU, no matter what it is. So A covers are going to have a different SKU line number. You've got the main UPC, and then those last 4 or 5 digits. For an A cover, it's going to be a 1. B cover is going to be a 2. C cover is going to be 3, etc. So I totally see where you're coming from on that front. I wish these lists would split all of that out, because it would give a much better view into what the print runs for certain things are, and that would actually help spec for speculators knowing, there's actually, only 50 of this 1 in 100 as opposed to what could be whatever. There's no real distinct breakdown of that. But when you're talking
retailers too, wouldn't retailers get value out of that?
No, because by the time these numbers come out, we've already done our big push and gotten our stuff out. Our main push is the first 2 weeks really of when, especially with variants, when those books come out. Anything after that, and we're still sitting with some of those some variant books on the shelf that we can't really do much with, that end up on our eBay store, things like that. So really, honestly, for me, it's I'd like to see that division, but when it's a different price point, it makes sense. What they're basically saying in their database system is everything that rolls up at $4.99 goes under this line item on the monthly number report out. Everything that goes under $5.99 rolls up under this one. So from a database and reporting standpoint, it makes total sense. But like I said, everything it's a different sales tactic, right? So if you've got an open to order option of a lenticular cover or a glow in the dark cover at $1 more than a regular cover, well, every smart retailer is going to say, I know that this book may be hot, so why not order heavier on the one that costs more? So if I sell out of the one that's $1 less, people have to buy the one that's $1 more. Right, so you're going to have retailers that do that. You're going to have some that are going to make a split right down the middle. That are going to say, hey, you know what? We want to be able to cater to either audience. And then you're going to have retailers that say, I don't have the cash outlay to be able to buy that lenticular cover, so I'm just going to go straight with the main cover.
Which is, I assumed when ordering was done that lenticular would be more prevalent, but it's not.
Yeah, and it was independently orderable too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything with DC right now is independently orderable.
Surprising.
And honestly, the reaction in the store, and this was actually the same with Marvel Legacy, was that nobody cared about the non-lenticular. Everybody wants that lenticular cover, they're happy to pay that extra $1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. And nice crisp corners, and usually no damages. You probably know better than me. So Doomsday Clock takes the first 2 spots, and I thought it was a great read, and I'm super excited about it. Number 3, the Batman Who Laughs, kind of the breakout evil Batman from the Metal event. Kyle, you went in heavy on this thing.
Oh, it's just such a cool character.
Yeah.
But now I have a lot of remorse from some of the really cool variants that were out for that one, and just the different things that character has on different covers and different 1 in 50s and such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an evil looking dude. Batman Lost number 1, which I don't remember which one that one was. That's not the underwater one, is it? Which one is Batman Lost? Is that part of Metal? It is, isn't it?
Yep.
It's part of it, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Then we have Batman 35, Batman 34 at 5 and 6. A lot of bats. Then at 7, Batman the Devastator, number 1. We finally have a Marvel appearance. Captain America 695, which is is that the first Wade and Samney of the Legacy title, right?
I do believe so.
Yeah, and then we have the Batman Annual, lovely Batman Annual number 2 at rank 9, and Star Wars 38 makes a surprise appearance to me in the 10th slot. So
I'm having a lot of trouble trying to figure out where the 100K line is and what I think some of these sold, because let's take Batman Annual number 1, for example, which came out last November. The previous annual, 91,000 for the one before that. Right. So they're usually similar in this one, but I think this one sold a little bit higher because of all the scuttlebutt behind it. Also, on the previous month, we had Batman 32 at 108,000 and 33 dipping under 100,000 at 97.
Yeah. I'm going to put the $100,000 line at the top 6. So all the top 6 are over $100,000. But Batman Devastator and below, I believe, are under $100,000.
And then Star Wars, if we look at the previous month for Star Wars, which I have now lost because I moved around too much. Star Wars 37 was only 65,000 the previous month.
Yeah. So I might be off. What's your guess there, Eric?
This is a tough one. If you take what we did in our store and use that as kind of a barometer, then I would say, I would say that Batman Annual 2 is over 100,000. We more than doubled our Batman Annual order, but seeing it under Captain America 695, that I kind of feel like between 7 and 8 is where that 100,000 line is. So I'm going to say that Batman Devastator is at or just under 100,000, but I think that Captain America 695 and Batman Annual 2 are in the 90s. Star Wars 38, though, I'm looking at the different variants for that. I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on Star Wars-wise, and the only thing that I can come up with is Star Wars 38 was the first Kieran Gillen written issue. So I think that there was a bump in people ordering that just to bring on a new...
The Aaron run?
Well, it's not that they didn't like it. It's just that if you think about it, Jason Aaron is, obviously a very well-known writer. He writes superheroes. He writes, Southern Bastards, stuff like that. Kieran Gillen writes, in some cases, like Wicked and Divine, a very different pocket audience. So you're going to have your folks that are already buying Star Wars, that are going to continue buying Star Wars, right? Your pull list folks, by and large, are creatures of habit. Every time you stop a title and relaunch it is an off-road for a subscriber, not an on-road. So you keep going in continuity with a number, you're going to keep those subscribers more or less, more than likely. Not all the time. But bringing on someone like Kieran Gillen, who does have a very good niche following, you increase the opportunity for additional sales. Not to mention, having a new creator is a new on-road. So it is an opportunity for stores to go ahead and try and pull more readers in. So those are the only things that I can come up with personally. We didn't really adjust our Star Wars order By any order of magnitude, I think we maybe went up 1 or 2 issues because we had a couple Kieran Gillen folks say, hey, I want to check it out. I don't think it moves from 65,000 to 100,000, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And
Kyle, where you at?
I'm giving Devastator, so I'm giving the 7. The other thing that this question is, we've said, man, we're not a big fan of all these big events on top of big events and all this crap, and it's confusing and it's bewildering to your fan base. But now DC has just been like, well, hold on a second. Maybe we might want to start layering event on the top of an event. And,
Hold my
a
beer.
few things here because
So these are two different things. Metal is an event. Doomsday Clock is a maxi series. So it's two completely different things. And what makes these actually unique
Kyle.
compared to Marvel is that Marvel Legacy, Secret Wars, Secret Empire, all those things affected 85 to 90% plus of the mainline titles.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight's Metal stuff, there's been a tie-in with the mainline titles here and there, but it hasn't disrupted the flow, rebooted anything, killed off massive amounts of people, brought in new worlds, collided worlds. It's really just existed in the Dark Multiverse with a flash of that Dark Multiverse coming into the main DC universe. And Doomsday Clock is really living in the Watchmen world, per se. So they're very different from how Marvel has handled their events and their maxi series books. And that's why the reception, at least in our store, has been a lot different than with Marvel. With DC, there's been a buildup of excitement because with the Dark Knight's Metal stuff, it's been new characters, it's been new ideas, this new unexplored Dark Multiverse. That has people excited. When you get to Doomsday Clock, well, yeah, I mean, you're bringing the Watchmen stuff back, and you've got people coming into the comic stores that haven't been reading comics for 25 years. That could care less. People that have never even read comics, but they know Watchmen because they've seen it. And now they see the poster in the window. So to me, it's very different things. The reaction to subscribers has been less of, oh, if I have to, all right, as opposed to, okay, hell yeah, put that on my list. I'm down with that. That sounds exciting. So I think that we kind of have to, we're looking at apples and pears instead of, apples and apples.
Is there anybody who is, okay, Doomsday Clock is out, I no longer care about Metal?
No. The folks that jumped off of Metal have already jumped off of Metal, which was very, very few. The majority of the folks are just adding to the pull list because they want to see this. And at this point, the overlap of Doomsday Clock and Metal is actually fairly minimal compared to how some events and whatnot have happened. I think we've only had one book that has had a 1-week delay with Metal, and that's something that DiDio has cracked down on big time at DC. We don't publish books late. So I think that the pace that they're moving at with Metal and the fact that Doomsday Clock is just starting to ramp up, don't be surprised if issue 3 or 4 of Doomsday Clock, all of a sudden things amp up, because that's when Metal will be tailing off and finished, and Doomsday Clock will be the torchbearer for the DC, publishing line.
Now, is there anything on Doomsday Clock that crosses over? I haven't seen a checklist or anything, or is it just those 10 titles?
There's no crossovers. It is.
That's what I thought.
It is just Doomsday Clock, just the Max series. It is going to be $4.99, I think, the whole way through, because the page count is higher for each issue.
No. That 10th one has to go up to at least $8. That's what I'm.
What about Omega?
Yeah.
Oh wait,
don't count on an Omega, and don't count on a price increase. That's actually from DiDio and Jim Lee. They've said that's where it's going to be. Now, if there's a page count increase, I won't be surprised if there's a price jump, but I would not expect an arbitrary price increase for the heck of it.
Very cool.
Okay, quiz number 2.
Okay.
Total Doomsday Clock sales, add 1 and 2 together of a lenticular, non-lenticular, and then the breakdown of how many non-lenticular sold and how many lenticular sold.
You couldn't have asked me that before we started recording, so I could have gone over to the computer and actually done the look.
You don't get an edge. You have to be flying by the seat of your pants like we do.
Man, if you and Kyle can vamp for about 5 minutes, I could go get it. But
We could do
No.
that. Kyle, go ahead.
Well, my guess is over 300K for the two of them together. As far as breakdown, like I thought they'd be neck and neck, or I actually gave Lenticular the edge in my brain beforehand, and I'm still kind of shocked that it's gone the other way. I mean, I'm going to pay that extra $1 every single day, and that was just pre-ordering. Now, when you and I looked at the Lenticulars in our hands, we said, "There's no way you wouldn't buy this immediately. It looks amazing,
beautiful."
So yeah, I mean, it's got to be super close. I say it's less than 60-40 between them. I don't want to get into like exact nuanced numbers, but I'm putting it over 300K and pretty much stocked neck and neck, we'll say 55-45 or whatever.
So that's
Yeah.
that's like 160 to 140. You're saying non-lenticular to lenticular. 140.
Yeah, and don't forget the non-lenticular. There were 3 non-lenticular $4.99 covers getting rolled in.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
you had a lot of people that were chasing all 3 covers because you had one was you had the Superman cover, you had the UK cover that couldn't have the Watchman smiley face, you had the main cover. So,
And that was independently orderable too.
yep, every single one of them.
Why didn't I get that?
I don't know.
Why didn't I get that one?
Good
The one
news.
without the-
I think I know an LCS that might have it, but I'll have to go check with them.
That smiley face, that non-smiley face one might be kind of cool to have. I don't think I got that one.
Yeah, each of the crud, why is it escaping me? The Flash Batman crossover.
Oh, yeah.
Each of those also had the button. Thank you. Had a UK cover as well that was very, very low ordered because it couldn't have that Watchman smiley face because it's trademarked by someone in the UK. Happy Times or something like that, or Good Times.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. Kyle's put his stake in the ground at 300,000. So I'm going to go 350.
I'm going right in between 325.
And you're going to go 325.
Yeah, I was thinking 175 to 150, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
And and I think I like that 60-40 split as well. So whatever that math is, I think makes a lot of sense. So we'll see how we did. Another thing that jumps off is the consistent strength of the Batman title. Brilliant move by DC going bi-monthly or bi-weekly, whatever the proper term is.
2 per month.
Twice
per
monthly.
month. Twice of them, 2 of them coming out every month. I mean, we saw it start to tail off, and we've seen them dip below 100,000 a couple of times on this thing, but it always comes back up. And now we're selling 2 Batman each month that are over or around 100,000. It continues to be the most consistent, stable property in all of comics. I think creatively that Tom King has found his voice with this, and it is so good that with a couple of missteps, I think the Tom King run has been better than the Snyder run already.
Oh.
So
Hot
there's
take.
a lot to chew in on that.
Yeah.
Can I jump in quick on the numbers first, and then Kyle and I can give our thoughts on the creative part? Okay, so the numbers thing I think is a misnomer, and Drew, did you listen to John Jackson Miller's interview that he did when he talked about crunching the numbers?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
So he nailed it on the head, and most people didn't catch it, and most people don't catch it. And that is that when these numbers are calculated, they're getting calculated at the end of the month.
Right.
And in most cases, this month is not the case because Batman 35 is above Batman 34, but in most cases, you see DC titles clumped together with the higher issue number directly underneath the lower. So in most cases, you would see 32 in a higher slot than 33 of Batman. Now, what we've seen month over month is that lower number tends to have a higher sale. Sometimes it's 101,000, 102,000. And then the next one is down in the 98s and 99s. And that's because it's not counting in the reorder activity. So every time that Batman ships, inevitably somebody always wants more. Not necessarily in our store, could be in a different store. So they put in a reorder. What's happening is if that first issue of Batman that hits in the month hits on the first Wednesday of the month, you've got 4 weeks of reorder activity that can get calculated.
And can get tracked, yeah.
Exactly. Because if you're only catching, 2 weeks of reorder activity or 1 week of reorder activity, it may only be 500 to 1,000 copies. But if you take that over 3 to 4 weeks and you run Diamond out of stock, that could be enough to put it over that 100,000 mark again. But you won't catch that in the next month because in the top, 100 or 300 issues, whatever it's going to be, 1,000 books isn't going to make the list.
Right.
But that 1,000 could put it over 100. So I don't think it's very fair to say that Batman's selling under 100,000. I would
didn't
say
that.
I'm not saying that you're saying it. Just in general, it seems that people are kind of carrying on this thought that Batman dips under 100,000 over and over again. And I would say if we were on a monthly cadence instead of a twice monthly cadence, we'd see that number staying at or above 100,000 because we'd have the time for the reorder activity.
Especially if it's a first week seller.
Yep, exactly. And that's no fault to anyone who's crunching the numbers. That's just a fact of reality. When you get these twice monthly shippings, you're going to see that. And the same goes for Flash, Wonder Woman, Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan. Doesn't matter. Any of those $2.99 books that are selling twice a month, you're going to see it. That one of them, usually the higher numbered issue, is going to have a dip in sales because the reorder activity hasn't been able to be factored in and won't be factored in for the next month. Which also goes to why at the end of the year, last year Diamond didn't provide it, but in years previous they had provided their top sellers of the year. That goes to show exactly why reorders count over the long term, and especially in the trade market, you're going to get some numbers that you don't even see because they sneak in just under that final number every month, but you add it up over 12 months and it can be a significant sales number.
That's a great point, and I don't think it gets touched on very often. It would be interesting if we mentioned to our friend John, who crunches the numbers and does all the math each and every month, if he could add to his spreadsheet tracking week of release, maybe, to that would show, well, this one may have dipped a little bit, but it's a 5th week comic or a 4th week comic, and so its reorder activity might add 10%.
Yep.
And that could explain some fluctuations and help with analyzing some of those numbers. We'll have to mention that to him.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step deeper without going too far off the tangent or on a tangent here. Is when it comes to Marvel and DC, James and I have been tracking this over the past probably 4 to 5 months is when we noticed it, and we've really been tracking over the last 2 to 3 months. When Marvel books are hitting the shelf, so we get our books shipped on Tuesday, and when the books arrive to us, if they're damaged or they're not here, which very rarely happens but does, we always call our Diamond rep and say, hey, we're missing these or these are damaged, and they'll order replacements. Well, more and more and more frequently with Marvel books, those replacements aren't there. With DC, every once in a while we'll see that happen, and what's happening is they'll set their print run, whichever publishing company. Doesn't have to be Marvel or DC. We just get more of those books, so we see it more often with them. They'll set their print run, and that's set through the FOC, which we'll talk about later on here in this episode. Once it's set, that number is reported to Diamond. There are 115,000 copies of Batman that are being printed. 108,000 of those are allocated for the stores. So that leaves 7,000 copies. Between FOC and the day that it ships, theoretically, someone could go in and order 7,000 copies, leaving 0 damage replacements. That happened with White Knight 3. By the time we got our books, all of our White Knight 3s were damaged, and we were only able to get about 40% of them covered. We literally took Diamond out of stock. The other 60% of our order had to go to back order. Well, with DC, that happens probably in about 10% of their titles, which is about par for the course with most major publishers, IDW, Image, Dark Horse, whatever. With Marvel, we've been tracking it, and by Monday, we're looking at what's on our invoice, and we're seeing 60 to 70% of those books already being out of stock at Diamond. So it's really weird when you start talking about numbers where Marvel's numbers are capped. Their reorder activity is going to back order. on a lot of these things. Whereas with DC, some of them have longer legs. So that's another deeper numbers discussion, but just something for people that don't get to see the inside to think about. And which is why we continue to advocate for, if you want a book, please, please, please pre-order it. Or you guys are a great case of this. Every once in a while, something will catch your eye a week and a half, 2 weeks out from when it's going to hit the streets, and you'll say, hey, can you order this? And I'm able to go in and add it and grab it before it's out of stock, before it even hits the shelf.
Which is awesome. Which we love. And what about creatively? So am I out to lunch on the creative aspect of Tom King's take on Batman and some of the stories that he's written so far in the 35 issues that he's helmed?
Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I mean, I've enjoying the stuff, and I think he's hit a really cool niche with the Catwoman thing and everything, and the way he's writing, and we are falling into something where I think it's a very comfortable writing. He's doing good things. I feel like he really has a grasp on Batman, and it's nothing too off the wall. But man, the highs with Snyder are just so high that I don't agree.
Okay.
I mean, but with Death in the Family, with Court of Owls, even with Mr. Bloom, I felt that was a super strong storyline as well. That I just, King's got this a very even, and if you're looking at the bar graph of what he's doing, it's still tapering up, I think. But with Snyder, man, there's just quintessential things that I think are absolute home runs.
And you don't think King's hit a home run yet?
No, I really don't. There's nothing that I look at it and say, that's something that only Tom King could write. That's something that is unique. Because I'm seeing good storylines. I'm not seeing great.
Okay. And I might be some recency bias. It's been a while since I've read a Scott Snyder Batman book. So, and the last one I think was like a 42-part story arc. So that one was a little long in the tooth.
Yeah, I guess for me, I think it's hit and miss with Tom. And it was the same for me with Scott. I definitely loved the first two arcs that Scott did. I loved the Bloom arc. I absolutely detested the Mech Bat, personally. I'm not saying it was poorly written. I just didn't like it. So there was a lot of ups and downs with Scott. With Tom's work, there's ups and there's downs with that as well. I don't know as if there's anything that... it's really hard when you say only Scott Snyder could have written The Court of Owls, because he wrote it. Could somebody else have written it? Probably. But I guess I think it's in execution. And I would say that through the first 30-some issues of Batman, I think Tom is every bit Scott's equal. And I think it's unfair to judge one against the other, because what Scott did with the character was to develop a lot more surrounding pieces